This is part 8 of LINQ tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss select many operator. Select and select many standard query operators belong to projection operators category. We discussed select operator in part 7. In this video, we'll discuss select many operator. Select many is used to project each element of a sequence to an I enumerable of day and flattens the resulting sequences into one sequence. The best way to understand this is through an example. In this demo, we will be making use of the student class. Notice this class has got three properties: name, gender, and subjects. Subjects property is a collection of strings. Now let's look at a few examples. Let's flip to Visual Studio. Here I have a new console application. All I have done so far is added this class file student.cs and provided the implementation for student class. Notice that these are the same properties that we have seen on the slide. In addition to these properties, we also have this static method called getAllStudents, which is returning list of student objects. And if you look at the implementation, it's pretty straightforward. All we are doing here is constructing an object of type list of student, and this list consists of 4 student objects. Tom is enrolled into these 2 courses, Mike is enrolled into these 3 courses, so on and so forth. Now what we want to do is retrieve all the student subjects and then print them on the console screen, and the best way to do that is by using select many operator. So we have the student class, which has got the static method getAllStudents, which is returning list of student objects, and to retrieve all the subjects I'm going to make use of select many extension method. Select many s such that s dot subjects. So this lambda expression will be applied on all the student objects that are present within this list of student. And if you look at the type of this subjects property, it's list of string. So what is the select many going to do? Now this is going to project all the subjects of a given string, given student, into a single I enumerable of string. Okay, now how many such students we have? We have got 4 students, so there will be 4 I enumerable of strings, and then all of them will be flattened or combined to form a single I enumerable of string. So if I hover the mouse over the select many method, notice what it is returning. It's returning I enumerable of string. So a single I enumerable of string, which is going to contain the list of all subjects of all students. So let's use a variable of type I enumerable of string, and let's call it subjects. And all that is left to do is use a for each loop. So for each string, let's call it subject n subjects, console.writeLine subject. Alright, so when we run this, as you might expect, we should have all the subjects of all the students printed. Alright, so that's our first example. Example 2, what we want to do is we want to rewrite example 1 using SQL-like syntax. Now before we do that, let's actually copy and paste this code in the notepad, because we'll be needing it later. So now let's use SQL-like syntax. So from student in student.getAllStudents, from subject in student.subjects, select subject. That's it. So let's run this and see the output. Notice that the output is exactly similar to what we have got in the previous example. Here we're using SQL-like syntax. Notice that when we are using SQL-like syntax, we don't use select many extension method. Instead, we have an additional from clause here. So this from clause is going to get its data from the results of the first from clause. So the first from clause is going to get the list of all students, and the second from clause is going to get the list of all subjects from the results of the first from clause. Alright, now let's look at another example. So we are going to take these two string arrays and then print each character that is present in both of the string arrays onto the console screen like this. Okay, so to speed things up, I already have that string array, so let's copy it. Let's go back to Visual Studio and then paste the string array there. So this is the source. This string array at the moment contains two strings. String array dot select many s such that s. So what's happening here? Now it's going to convert each string into an enumerable of character sequence. Since we have got two strings, there will be two enumerable of character sequences, which will then be flattened or combined to form a single enumerable of character sequence. So if I hover the mouse over the select menu, notice from the IntelliSense, this method is returning enumerable of character sequence. So let's use a variable of type enumerable of char, and let's call it maybe result. And then all that is left is to use a for each loop for each char c in result. We want to print the character on the console. So now when we run this, as you might expect, the alphabets which are in the first string are printed from A to Z, and then the numbers which are present in the second string are printed from 0 to 9. Alright, now the fourth example is to rewrite the previous example using SQL-like syntax. Again, that's pretty straightforward. If you want to use SQL-like syntax, then you will have two from clauses. So from s in your source, which is string array, and then from c in s, we want to select c, which is the character. And let's run this and notice that exactly the same output. Now, when we used, this piece of code, we got all the subjects of all the students, right? So let's actually paste it here, run it. So notice that we got all the subjects of all the students. And if you look at this C# subject, for example, it's repeated 3 times. Why is that? That's because 3 students have enrolled into that subject. Tom, Mike, and Pam have enrolled into C# subject. That's why we have that duplicate, when we have printed the subject name. Now there may be scenarios where you want to retrieve only the distinct subject names. If that is the case, there is another operator called distinct that you can use. So simply use distinct, and then now when we run this, we should have the unique subject names. And the next example is to rewrite this example using SQL-like syntax. So from student in student.getAllStudents, from subject in student.subjects, select subject. So now when we run this, as you might expect, what's going to happen, it's going to print the duplicates, but we only want the unique subject names. So if that is the case, on the results of this query, we are going to invoke distinct extension method, which is going to give us unique subject names. So now what we want to do is print the subject names, also the student name. So we want the student name along with all the subjects, right? So let's see how to achieve this one. So we have our student class dot get all students, which is going to give us list of all students. I'm going to use select many s such that s dot subjects. So this is going to give us list of all the subjects, and then I'm going to use 2 variables here. Let's call one as student and the other one subject. And then what we want to do is project this into a new anonymous type. So new, and the first property within the anonymous type is going to be student name equals Where are we going to get the value for that? From this student variable, student.name. And then we want the subject name. So another property name is subject name. That is equal to, where is this going to get its value from? From the subject variable. So subject. Alright. Now at the moment, notice that we have compilation error. That's basically because now this select many is not going to return IEnumerable of string. Instead it's going to return IEnumerable of this anonymous type. So if I hover the mouse over, notice from the IntelliSense we get IEnumerable of A, that's present in the first line, and look at the second line, A is an anonymous type, right? So let's use the var keyword to store the results. So let's actually call this result, and then for each var v in result, what we want to do is write student name, separate that with a dash, and then subject name. Alright, so let's run this now. Notice that we get student names along with their subject names. Now, how to rewrite this? Using SQL-like syntax. So from student in student.getAllStudents. So we are going to get a list of students. From that, get subjects in student.subjects. And what we want to do is select a new anonymous type. That's it. So let's run this, and notice that exactly the same output. We are using SQL-like syntax this time. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.